Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Charles Williams. I am a volunteer with AARP, a member of the Kentucky Executive Council, and an ambassador for AARP's lifelong learning. Alicia, who you've heard in the background, is assisting me. Thank you very much, Alicia, for keeping everybody on tap with silencing their devices. I will be your moderator for today. We have one rule. Because we're going to try a couple of things with this technology, some may work, some may not, so just bear with us. The main rule is let's have fun and let it be an entertaining and an informative event. We're very excited to have three renowned speakers on our panel. They are specialists in their respective fields of music. But before we get to the nitty-gritty of things, I'll start by sharing some of the answers to the questions you responded to in the chat room when you logged in. That question was, what is your favorite TV show theme song or jingle? Anisha, do you have anything you can put up for us?
All of those answers are in the chat.
Hi, Fred.
What I will put up comes later.
Okay, all right, then we will proceed. So that was a bit of a teaser that we sent out to you to get you just in kind of the frame of mind to come in and join us here on the power of music, mind, movement, and emotion. I was just thinking in the back of my mind about a couple of theme songs that stayed in my mind. One is those old cowboy themes I sang along with Roy Rogers as he ended his show every day. This event is presented by AARP Kentucky Comebackers Program to provide influence and inspire comebackers. Kentucky Comebackers is an AARP graduate network initiative which promotes lifelong learning and provides resources for adults 50 plus who are interested in making their comeback to education. You'll hear more about some of the opportunities for the 50 plus who wish to learn and earn a GED, technical certificate, associate's, or bachelor's degree at the end of today's show. We also want to discuss ways in which music can influence individuals to continue their lifelong learning journey by becoming comebackers. During today's event, we will discuss the power of music on our minds, movement, and emotions. According to a new report from AARP-founded Global Council on Brain Health, music can help stimulate many areas of the brain, including those responsible for memory, movement, and mood. Researchers have found that music may improve sleep and may also sharpen memory, as well as help to reduce stress and aid in stimulating thinking skills, all of which can be good for maintaining brain health as we age. Before I introduce our speakers for today, I want to remind you to please stay muted, which will minimize background noise, and put your questions in the chat room at any time. And now, I want to introduce our panelist. Jeff Raymond is a Louisville, Kentucky native and full-time musician performing as a solo pianist, keyboardist, and vocalist. He has a master's degree from the University of Louisville School of Music and is internationally renowned. Welcome, Jeff.
Well, thank you. Good to see everybody. Hi.
Thank you, thank you. Can you give us just a quick 1-minute overview of why you became a musician?
Yes, I started at 8 years old. We didn't even have a piano. And for some reason, that instrument it just connected with me. So I wanted at that point to be able to play piano. When I got older, when I was 16, I got in my first band. And then all that changed. He said, you got to enjoy what it's like to play and perform out. And I think it was my mid-20s where I really said, this is it. And I am going in that direction full time. And I went into college at age 29. I wasn't fresh out of high school. So I went and pursued the academic areas of music at that age. So it got serious as I went along. It started out important, but it got even more serious as I progressed.
Sounds like an interesting start. And for a late starter, it seems to me, or it sounds as though you were very dedicated to the field of music. It must have struck a chord. R. Chord, did you get it? No. Oh. Our next panelist is, sorry about this, but my fingers are sticking to it. Our next panelist is Elizabeth Rhodus, and she has worked in geriatric care for over 12 years. She obtained her PhD in gerontology from the University of Kentucky in order to advance scientific recognition of behavioral interventions for those with dementia. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. Can you give us a brief idea or brief thought about what guided you to gerontology?
Sure, absolutely. So kind of like Jeff, I started thinking about taking care of people in childhood. When I was 7, I had a little brother with Down syndrome, and that put me into the realm of rehabilitation. I knew at that point that I wanted to help people, and I actually became an occupational therapist. And in my time as an occupational therapist and working with my brother, I realized this unique experience that happens between the environment and the person, and that happens through our sensation. And so my research has really been grounded in sensory-based interventions to change behavior. So music is a perfect example of a sensation that we can use to change our behavior and change how the brain works.
Wow.
And so my current research is really looking at those intricacies.
Wow, wow. What type of music do you listen to when you want to lift your spirits?
Well, in a little bit, we're going to talk about the generational type of music, but I really like hip hop. So
Okay.
that's
Cool.
the kind of music I listen to.
Our next panelist is Jess Rushing. She is a PhD and assistant professor of music with a master's in music therapy from Florida State University and a doctorate in rehabilitation science from the University of Kentucky. She works in a clinical field with ages ranging from premature infants to end-of-life individuals. Welcome, Jess.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you with us. What guided you towards music therapy?
Sure, that's a great question. I always loved two things, which is music and people. And I learned that there was an entire field and career path dedicated to the marriage of those two things and how you can use music to promote well-being, health, and work in different ways when abilities have been impaired in different capacities. And along the rehab path, learning more and more about how the brain functions and how music can access different areas and really guide that health and wellness piece of everything.
Wow. Wow, that's very interesting. So what type of music do you listen to lift your spirits?
I know a little bit of everything, but I do lean pretty hard on the bluegrass.
Cool. Oh, we have some fun information for you towards the end of this presentation. So we're going to move on to the first part of the presentation. We're going to break this up into 3 parts: mind, movement, and emotions. In the first part, I'm going to direct my question to Jess. And we want you to take a look at, first of all, Anisha, do we have any results? Oh, no, we don't. Okay. What is your favorite TV theme song or jingle?
Is mine?
Yes, you, Jess.
Well, I was thinking about the Golden Girls, Thank You for Being a Friend. I remember doing that on a unit in the hospital once for a group of nurses on Friendship Day. And it was a surprise, one of the lead nurses. So that's always been a fond memory of mine. Also, I just really like the Golden Girls.
Did you dress up in a wig and everything?
I did not go that far. I didn't have that much advance notice.
Okay, Jeff, I'm going to go to you now real quick.
Sure. You know, a lot of the 60s TV shows had some great themes, you know, I mean, Bewitched and Gilligan's Island, the Brady Bunch, which was early 70s, all that. But I tend to, when something different came out, I said, I like this one. And it's kind of fun. It's the theme to Mannix. You know, it's a little different. It's an upbeat, big band feel. It's got a lot of energy. And that one always seems to go back. I always say, you know what, I like that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Theme to Mannix.
I like Hawaii 5-0 too.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely there, yeah.
By the way, Jeff, does playing a musical instrument train the brain? And if so, how?
Well, as far as the brain's activity, I know the other panelists are going to be able to address that much more than me, but I can say this. I know that playing an instrument will develop the ability to focus, long-term achievement, being able to see that things don't work right away. You have to work at it for quite a while for things to develop and to attain results. As far as the brain itself, I've seen, yes, where people can be calmed down, mood enhancer. Definitely witnessed that for sure, but I absolutely, it does. And I think the other two can address that in more specifics.
You two young ladies, which one of you would like to respond to that also? Does playing a musical instrument train the brain? And if so, how?
Sure, I'll take it for a second and then pass it on to Elizabeth. It absolutely does. In fact, the more we learn about neuro imaging and being able to do more advanced research in that area, we can actually see changes in brain structures and how different, for example, if you are a violinist and you have the fine motor skills in your left hand, the brain map of that area is going to be different than your right hand.
Wow, that's interesting. Elizabeth, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love playing an instrument. Not personally, I'm not that talented, but in using the brain to use both parts of the brain. We know that the brain is broken into two hemispheres, and this connection between is called the corpus callosum. And the stronger this connection is between the two parts of your brain, the better your balance is going to be, the speed of your reactions, and the better the brain is going to communicate. So as you age, if you're actively playing an instrument, you're really strengthening and maintaining your abilities of the brain to function and to communicate with itself. And just like Jess was saying, this idea of neuroplasticity, meaning that we can grow the brain specifically with playing music as an instrument and listening to music. And we can continue to do this throughout the entire age continuum. So people who are 99 can continue to grow their brain through playing an instrument.
Elizabeth, you answered another part of the question. I was about to ask, how does it how does it affect us as we grow older? And it just continues as we go along.
Absolutely. And it's a relatively new finding that we can continue to grow our brain with neuroplasticity and these kinds of mechanisms. 30, 40 years ago, they were saying that the brain didn't really continue to grow as you got older. But now we have really solid evidence and research that shows with this neuroimaging and things that we really can continue to change our brain, even if we have advanced dementia and cognitive impairment throughout the entire age continuum.
Wow. Wow. When I was a small kid, I went to Disneyland and I got on this ride where the background music was It's a Small World. When I left, that music played in my ear 8 months, maybe even as long as a year. I wake up in the morning with that jingle in my head. I found out sometime later that is called an earworm. What is it about a song that causes it to stick in our heads? I'll start with you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, in looking at the brain, it's this idea of rhythm. And rhythm is maintained within the base of our brain. And these integral structures that control heart rate and breathing, that's the same place where our rhythm is stored. So if we have this tune that's really catchy and it's repetitive, it's stored right there next to where the body is telling your heartbeat to continue to beat. From a memory and a perception side, I'm going to defer that to Jeff and Jess, but that's just a little bit of the neural structures and where that's stored in your brain.
Jeff, can you help us with the melodic side of that question?
Oh yeah, it's funny because I wrote that song down. This is in my notes. It's a Small World because it's the best example of a song that will linger. You can't get it out of your head. I think there's a couple elements compositionally. It's simple. It doesn't mean that it's bad or good. It's just simplistic that we can attach ourselves to the melody. It's predictable. It's symmetric. We've got a layout of a verse, and then it gets to the chorus, and it's like, oh, Oh, that's easy enough to sing, and it repeats what she just said. Repetition is the big one, but a simplistic melody that doesn't stray too far out. You know, you're not going too abstract. It's something that we can grab onto. It's a perfect example. I've seen it many times. It happens to me too.
Wow. I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one it caught a hold of. Jess, what do you think?
I agree. I think one of the other elements of it is the familiarity, which is one of the principles we use in music therapy a lot. So we want to get as close to your favorite and familiar music as possible in order to drive some of those health and therapeutic related outcomes.
Mhm.
So here in North America, you know, in the US, we default, if we don't know otherwise from people's cultures and background, into Western music. And that first interval of that song, da, 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 is one of the most familiar intervals in our popular music in the US. So it hits you from the beginning and then gets stuck there. So we could use that to, if we want to do something familiar, we might use that information. If we don't want to compete with some other type of stimulus, we would do something unfamiliar.
Okay, good, good, good. So I have another question. I understand, Elizabeth, you and Jess have some kind of an interactive activity that you want to try with the audience. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. We want to
Okay.
tie in this idea of rhythm and repetition and childhood memories and see how you guys feel.
Before I get started, I'd like to remind our audience to make sure that they mute their system, and also switch your screen to gallery. And you'll be able to do that by going to, I believe, on the left side of your screen. Mine is on the left side of the screen, and there's a window pane looking icon. Click on that, and that will spread it out so you will see both Jess and Elizabeth doing their thing as they question how music affects our memory. Go ahead.
All right, Jess, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce our activity. You guys at home, please feel comfortable to just kind of sit back and relax and follow along. We strongly encourage you guys to participate and to give it a try. If you want to turn on your video, we would love to kind of watch and do it together.
Thanks, Elizabeth. We're going to do a simple activity based on rhythm, movement, and using our voice. So we're going to try to tie in all those things all at once in a very quick fashion. So I'm going to ask that we're going to clap a little bit. We're going to punch the ceiling either forward or up. And we're going to go ooh-wee. So no one can hear you. So you're free to fully engage. I'm going to, yeah, we'll do that next. Okay, so here's the first piece. I'll go first, and you all mirror what I do right after. So here's the first piece. I'll do it again. Your turn, go. Awesome. One more time, me, then you. Great. The next piece is punch, punch. Your turn.
Punch, punch.
My turn, punch, punch. Your turn.
Punch, punch.
So we'll combine those. Your turn, go. Nailed it. All right, the last part is ooh-wee.
Ooh,
Ooh,
Ooh-wee.
Oh,
Yeah, you can interpret that however you want. I like it. I like the improvisation. So all together, it will look like this. Ooh-wee.
ready?
1, 2, ready, go. Ooh-wee. Yes, okay, we're gonna try to speed it up.
Uh-oh.
1, 2, ready, go. Ooh-wee. Ooh.
Ooh-wee.
I'm gonna do it faster.
Oh boy.
1, 2, ready, go. Ooh. I'll do it faster again. 1, 2, ready, go. Ooh.
Ooh-wee.
All right, I think y'all nailed it.
Now, what did that do for us?
Well, let me tell you, what if I gave you the musical mnemonic that accompanied it, that it happens to be? Well, first of all, did everybody get it? Did everybody nail each piece?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It looks like it.
Okay.
We could keep going with the speed of it, so the musical mnemonic that I didn't tell you at the beginning was shave and a haircut, 2 bits. So I bet if we started there, we could do it as fast as we wanted to because of the memory that is inherent with that implicit familiar tune.
Shave and a haircut, you bet.
Yeah, Charles, you got it.
I got it. Do that again, Jeff. Okay, we've got something going here.
So we used a number of musical elements, and then we also integrated our movement and singing. So all of that taps into an incredible number of networks. And then I gave you the memory piece at the end there. Plus you were practicing sequencing multiple steps in a row.
Wow, that's a lot went on in just those few seconds. Wow. Okay, I'm going to move on with other questions for you all. Can music be bad for us in terms of either lyrics or volume, or can it affect us to the extent that there may be PTSD ramifications from it? I'm going to direct that one to you, Jeff.
You know, for the largest part, I think music has a high percentage of positivity. You know, hype, I don't know the stats, but what I've seen, what I've learned and witnessed, it's all good, so to speak. But I do believe those do exist, especially in lyrics, that can happen. You know, the 3 elements of music are rhythm, harmony, and of course, a melody. And so when you're trying lyrics, that brings in a whole new dimension of what can be said and meaning. Another thing about post-traumatic stress, I've actually witnessed that. I know it's not the music itself, but the relationship of the music at the time of the event. And so that can certainly be something that can happen. Other than that, I think for the most part, it's very, very good for us in many, many ways.
Cool. Jess, can you add to that?
Sure, I agree. There are a lot of really positive elements in it for the most part, and a couple of things that I think about being cautious about when I'm working with different types of folks. With PTSD, I'm definitely going to think about, are there loud sounds? Are there sudden changes in the musical structure? Are there things that might trigger an emotion-related event or something that they've experienced? So a lot of times in music therapy practice, you'll do an assessment first. So that might be part of the process, is asking folks, do you have any specific music memories that might trigger something that's unpleasant or might put you in a place that would be challenging for you? So in that particular area, I would. Also in relationship to volume, one of my areas of knowledge is related to NICU music therapy, so working with premature infants. So in that area, we try to keep the volume below 65 decibels, which is what we know starts to cause damage for those infants. So we'll take a decibel meter in there with us and help train staff in the NICU to monitor the volume and things of that nature. So when we apply music, which is actually measured on a different scale than the noise and sound, we do consider things like volume. And then
I like to learn a little bit more about the different ways of measuring, but we don't have, that's not a subject for this particular presentation. I'm going to try and change the questioning now, and I'm going to move on over to Elizabeth and ask you, Elizabeth, we're living in some especially interesting times, and we might be stressed or anxious more so than ever before. With that little backdrop, how can music be used for or possibly help with stress relief anxiety and depression?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So music has a special way to tap into all of these different parts of our brain. And in doing that, we're activating numerous different networks that help the brain communicate. And it's actually within the emotional part of the brain that highlights the most. So by highlighting this emotional part of the brain, we can feel a little bit better, have decreased stress, improve depression, and also improve motivation to kind of get up and to move, because our body likes to move with the beat. Not only does this physical network change, but there's also a change in the chemical release within your brain. So there's a release of endorphins, and endorphins just kind of make you feel good. There's a release of dopamine, and dopamine is that same release if you eat a really good piece of cheesecake or cookie and you feel that just feeling of, oh, that's kind of nice. Music does the same thing. So it helps us chemically just to feel a little bit better in our bodies.
I have to ask this question. So if it can do that to make us feel good, what is it about some music that turns people against it, that makes them maybe feel bad or agitated?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. Some of the things that we've been talking about, why people are drawn to music, like this rhythm and this pattern and familiarity, that's what makes us feel good. The opposite end of the spectrum is going to make people not feel so good or feel agitated. So if it's something really with a very differentiated tempo or rhythm that the brain can't kind of predict, we're not going to really like it as much. Also, there's evidence that shows certain kinds of music, like rap music or really hard rock and roll, can actually make you feel tense, and it will raise your blood pressure. So there's this it's a beautiful harmony and dynamic between rhythm and repetition, but it can kind of be used in a way that's going to make us not feel so good. So like Jess was saying, pulling us towards the things that we're familiar with and that we know make us feel comfortable is going to help us with the most bang for our buck, so to speak, for the emotional side of things.
Wow, I'm getting a lot from this. I can't write it down fast enough. I'm glad we're recording this so I can review it. We're coming towards the end of this session, but I just want to check and see, Valicia or Anisha, do we have any questions in chat that we might want to pose to the panelists?
Yeah, we have one question. How can music heal? Anybody could take that one.
I'll start. I don't, sometimes you don't really have a good reason. Let me just say it this way. I say music is magic. And you go, well, come on, there's got to be reasons. There's got to be nuts and bolts. And of course, my degrees are in composition, so I understand those types of things. But sometimes it just does. You know, that's a terrible answer in a way, but on the same idea, it's one of those things that let's let it stay that way. Let's let it be magic, let it heal the soul in the ways that it does as each person interprets that music.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I like this idea of harmony, not only in the music, but in our bodies as well, and in our brains. So if we're talking about the chemicals and we're talking about this mixture of music and creating this, just kind of washes over your entire brain, this idea of harmony throughout the chemicals and the networks that then help also relax your entire body. So that's going to allow for healing throughout your entire body. We know that cortisol is a chemical that's released in our brains in response to stress. Also, inflammation can be released with environmental cues. So by adding something that's going to help us feel better, like music, it's going to lower our inflammation. It's also going to lower our cortisol and stress levels that actually promote and boost up healing. So there are actual hard scientific ways that our body can promote healing by helping our brains feel better through music.
Wow. Elizabeth, very quick, because we want to get to the end of this section, but what do you think, Elizabeth? How can music heal?
Jess?
Jess, maybe? Yeah. No
I'm
problem.
sorry. I'm looking at Jess, I'm sorry.
No worries at all. Yes, so my entire career is based on music being able to help heal folks. And my area of particular practice is following stroke. So we do a lot of work with shaping musical experience that help people learn how to move in different ways or help enhance strength and endurance of moving. So I think we might talk about movement here in a minute, but using music to structure things that maybe are more challenging or that you'd like to enhance more in your life, and using all those elements that Jeff is really good at composing and creating that music that can actually be tied exactly to what you would like to do and promoting your health goals. So that's the great thing about why there's so many different kinds of music, and what is your favorite and what is going to be motivating for you, and what do you value in life, and how can you connect music to enhancing reward and pleasure and motivation and strength and endurance.
Wow. Good. Thank you,
And
Jess.
Charles,
I'm moving on to part 2.
Charles, we actually have a few good comments in chat of people sharing music and what it means for them. So someone shared jazz music relaxes me. It also helps me stay focused on work and activities. Patricia shared that she listened to the aria from Madame Butterfly, sung in Italian, and although she didn't understand the words, she was deeply moved by the emotion of the song. And then Michelle just shared with us that she listened to meditation music throughout the day that helps her stay focused and relaxed. And so I think that's kind of a really good intro as we go into our next topic here.
Yes, yes. We're going to move on to part 2, but before I go, I want everyone to put it in the back of their mind, because we're going to come back to this question if I remember it. What song do you associate with your first love? And I can hear Zoomland waving right now as the smiles are going across the screen. Everyone is all happy about that song, that one song that you associate with your first love. Is the chat room abuzz yet? While we're waiting on responses, we're going to move on to part 2, which is about emotion. And our first question, I'm going to just throw this one out there generally, that says, what music makes most people feel relaxed, focused, and motivated, and why? I kind of think I know the answer to that one, but I'm going to start with you, Jeff.
Well, just mentioned one of the people that chat room talked about jazz and how they liked it. It's kind of an intellectual style of music in a way. There's a lot going on in jazz, depending on what kind. But you know, in general, let's just say this: tempos that are slower and calming will promote relaxation. You know, pretty much. And then you know, you got the theme to Rocky. You know, and you're going to go out and want to run and be motivated and focused on your goal. And you know, there's jazzercise and all kinds of spin classes that utilize music with heavy beats, tempos that are up above 140. We can talk about that in a minute. But things that have a definite pulse and get you fired up. You know, and like I said, classical music is another great example. There's different styles and genres of classical music. But depending, a lot of people do find a lot of relaxation in classical music, and I think there's a lot of research on that's been shown. So, but it will vary from person to person. You'll have one person like something, and then another person will hear the same thing and get something totally different out of that. And I've seen that before.
Wow. Jess, what do you think about music and how it relaxes some, and how we get focused and motivated by it?
I think Jeff nailed some of the key principles in what's motivating and versus what's relaxing, considering the tempo and the pulse of the song or the piece of music, considering if there's lyrics or not, because lyrics can be arousing. They tap into emotions and thoughts, as opposed to music without lyrics that could promote more relaxation. We also know that people tend to gravitate towards music in their late teens, early 20s. And I read a little bit on a newer article that talks about how people also tend to gravitate now towards their children's music, and then even their grandchildren. So those are some of the places that I would start if I'm thinking about what kind of music might be relaxing and motivating for somebody.
Could the reason they're gravitating towards children's music be because those children are playing the same thing all of the time?
That could be true. Also potentially the emotional association between watching your grandchildren enjoy this kind of music and wanting to be a part of it, or like you said, being exposed to maybe your children play the same music over and over again while they were growing up, so that's really seared into your memory. And then of course your teen years and into your 20s is a very developmental part in someone's life, so all that music is really associated with you growing as a person.
Mm-hmm. Jess, I have a question for you. What is it about music, in your opinion, that allows it to transcend time, generations, and even space?
I think music is a robust experience that taps into all of these neural processes and creates associations across your lifespan. And then those experiences overlap with other people's, and then you have this shared experience, or you participate in something that creates that shared experience. And it's a complex process of perceiving music, experiencing music, making music. It is different in a way than any other type of art or type of interaction that you have with people.
Elizabeth, the same question.
Yeah, thank you. This is a big question, and I think a lot of it's going to tie into the tempo and the melody side of things, because we're talking about things like jazz music and the opera that was, you know, written and produced, you know, decades ago, but people can still really resonate with it and appreciate it now. I'm sorry if you can hear my 2-year-old. She's having a good time in the background. Everybody's okay in my house though. We have this idea within the brain of Mir Neurons. And this is the idea of, if I'm going to yawn, you might yawn as well. If we're listening or watching music and the person who is playing is feeling however they're feeling, we're going to pick up on those emotions. Same with the tempo and beat. I mentioned that the rhythm is stored right next to your heartbeat. Well, there's this activation of mirror neurons going on within the brain. So if this tempo is really fast, it's going to make our heartbeat go fast. And if it's slow, then it's going to help our heart rate go a little bit slower. And there's an idea, this relationship between our heart rate and our emotional state. So if my heart is nice and steady, then I'm going to be likely to be able to focus. And if my heart rate is going fast, I might be a little bit kind of upbeat or anxious. I think I'm going back to the other question though. So we're talking about transcending time. So,
yeah.
And thinking about this idea of mirror neurons and this continuation of how it's making us feel. And as Jess mentioned, this idea of golden years from the ages of 15 to 25, we carry the emotions and the things that we liked with us for the rest of our life. That's why we have golden oldies. Whatever music you were listening to when you were in this age window of 15 to 25, you're going to like it for the rest of your life. And that's going to transcend through your time. But I would really like to defer this question to Jeff and see what he has to say about how classical music is still a thing throughout generation after generation.
Well, you've brought up some great points as well. I think a very simplistic answer would be a good melody lasts a long time. And there's a lot of criticism in recent years that what happened to all those well-written songs, those nice melodies that we used to have. And there is something to that, because a lot of modern music, pop music, are rhythm-oriented. And as I had said earlier, the 3 elements are rhythm, harmony, and melody. And melody will, of all those 3, let me say it this way: when you're in the club, when you're listening to something in live entertainment, a concert, at that moment, the rhythm captivates you. You are immersed in the rhythm, a lot of it, not all of it, but that's pretty much what gets you moving. And you're a part of it. But what you take away once you leave that event is the melody will still linger. You might have some elements of those other things, of harmonic language as well as, but rhythmic, but the melody will keep on. So in a very simplistic way, well-written songs, and it could go back as far as classical music. If you listen to the melodies, they were presented and then developed, an exposition, a development. A recapitulation is what we call it, a sonata form, in which you would bring the idea forward. The listener would hear the melody, and they'd say, now the composer uses it and inverts it and plays with it, and he turns it upside down, and uses it in elongation and diminution, smaller, all kinds of devices that just say, wow, Where does that come in recent years? It just doesn't happen as much. But let's just say this: a good melody will last a long time. You have to say it that way.
As you were talking, I'm reminded of the movie Fantasia by Walt Disney, and all of the movements and everything that happened with it, from the dancing hippos to the water and the broom. And I can hear Fantasia now. And of course, I'm sorry I mentioned it, but It's a Small World is in my head again. Doggone it.
There you go.
So
It's perfect fourth interval.
we engage in music. What is that? What was that?
Well, it's the interval referred to earlier as the beginning of that song. And by the way, it's the same interval going descending, but we should refer to an interval which is called perfect fourth. And it's one of those that people latch onto, perfect fifths, perfect fourths. It's a technical thing, but that's what that is. It's a fourth.
Is that the same as a palindrome in music?
No, but we have those though. We call them, this has been a while.
We won't get it. I'm straying off the weeds now. I'm sorry. We engage with music in various ways, such as listening on our own or going to a concert with thousands of people, pre-COVID, of course. How is the experience different in each case? And since I already have you here, Jeff, let's start with you. I mean, whether we're in a concert or sitting down with our headphones, wearing our headphones, or in a room by ourselves, what makes that different, that experience different? Crowd versus singularity?
Man, there's just that, I'm going to say it in a lingo here. There ain't nothing like a live music, you know. You get the most out of that because it's not just the playing of the notes. It's the social interaction. It's what's coming before. It's things they say. It could even be a blunder or something that's mistakenly done that's exciting. It's like, well, did you just see what happened? So that social interaction and being among live players is just the greatest, you know. But there's nothing at all wrong with being by yourself. There's times for that as well. And you can, I think, they both have equally amount of benefit. But again, I guess I'm a proponent of live music. That's what I do. But at the same time, I've seen the effect of that. And socially, what happened before, what happened after, that kind of thing.
Okay. I'm going to try that one again with you, Jess. The crowd versus individual. How does that work in your interpretation?
Sure. You know, one of the things that we're measuring a lot more in music therapy research is that impact on participation and socialization and decreasing feelings of isolation, and being together and experiencing music with other people, whether you're listening or you're creating it, has that added element of the participation and social. And music listening on your own creates different things. It creates that, so you get to pick what it is. You get to pick if it's relaxing, if it's motivating, if it's focusing music for you, if it's working on changing your mood in some specific way. And you can change that as you are on your own. Whereas when you're with people, you're getting more of that social interaction of we're experiencing this together, and what is that experience like?
Wow. You guys are so smart. I'm going to be a lot smarter when I leave this today. In the interest of time, we're going to try and move along a little bit more, but I'm going to throw another question out for our listening audience. And that question is going to be, what is your go-to song to dance to? Watch me. Do you want me to get up and do my favorite? Nah, that's okay. I was going to break dance, but I'll be on the floor. You can't see me, but I can do it. Jeff, can you give us just a little bit of maybe a 10 or 15 second transition as we move on into our third section? Now, thank you, Jeff. That's good. I like that. And now we're going to transition on over into movement, which is what I was doing in case you didn't recognize it. So this question is going out to everyone. If one cannot sing or play a musical instrument, is there another way to participate in the musical experience rather than just listening in terms of movement? let's start with Jeff. You just hit us with the keyboard there. Is there another way to listen to music in terms of movement?
Well, the obvious is dance, of course. But what has been exhibited earlier in this was call and response. A lot of times, just clapping your hands, or a movement of a gesture, or an expected response at a certain place. Those are all interactive without having to play the instrument itself. The first one, of course, dance is the big one.
Yes, yes, yes. Jess, what do you think?
Absolutely. I think that you can interact with music in whatever movement you feel compelled to do or would like to work on from a health standpoint. It doesn't have to be a full out break dance. It could be tapping your toes. It could be shrugging your shoulders. It could be listening to something relaxing and doing some stretching to activate, either to relax or to activate, gain some energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, now that I have your attention, Jess, I believe you and Elizabeth have another little interactive exercise that you want to try. Is that right?
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do it. Again, audience, please put your screen on gallery mode, which is that window pane looking icon, so you can see everyone, and let's get to it.
All right, the next,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
the next one is going to be similar to the first one. So I want you guys to kind of sit back in your chairs and relax. Make sure that your hands are free because we're going to be moving a little bit more for this one. Jess, you want to take it away?
Sure. So Elizabeth and I designed these brain exercises, brain music exercises, we'll call them, to be able to do over Zoom and to tap into some of that more cognitive functioning areas. So we're going to do another one that you can pat your legs. I'm going to pat my chest so that you can see it, but you can also pat your legs. We're going to clap and we're going to snap. If you don't get any sound when you snap, that's okay. Just do the motion as well. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the cues for this one. This one's going to be peas, porridge, hot. Then we're going to do the same thing. Peas, porridge, cold. Peas, porridge in the pot. This one's 9 days old. So it's repetitive in the beginning, and then it gets a little tricky towards the end. I'm going to do the end again for you. Peas, porridge in the pot. So I'll do it first, then you repeat it. Peas, porridge in the pot. Ready and go.
Peas, porridge in the pot. 9 days old.
Yeah, then it gets tricky, right? Yeah, perfect. So then the 9 days old, we're here, right? 9 days old is 9 days old. So now you have to reverse it. 9 days old.
9. Whoa.
Yeah, you got it. 9
days old. 9 days old. 9 days old. I got it.
Okay. All right, I'll go through it. I'll go through it slow, and then we'll switch. Peas, porridge, hot. Peas, porridge, cold. Peas, porridge in the pot. 9 days old. 9 days old. 9 days old. Yeah, 9 days.
Let's do this thing.
All right, let's do it. We're gonna do it and then get a little faster as we go. Okay.
Whoa! Don't get too challenged.
Porridge hot. Peas, porridge cold. Peas, porridge in the pot. 9 days old. Peas, porridge hot. Peas, porridge cold. Peas, porridge in the pot. 9 days old.
Peas, porridge. Okay. I give up. I don't get
excited.
excited.
You take out the words, right?
Well, I kind of got out of order, but I'm not going to tell you everything else that was going on in my head. I just couldn't keep up. Hey, by the way, do we have a couple of seconds to look into the chat room? Anisha or Alicia, do we have anything in the chat room that we can talk to that?
Well, we got a lot of comments about the love song. So it's been a long, long time. You Are by Lionel Richie. The Way We Were, Lovely Day, Always and Forever. How Do I Know I Love You? Some of the, someone wrote about they met each other singing in a show that had Broadway musical standards. So that brought back some memories. So variation pieces there.
Wow. If we had time, I would break out in tune for you guys and truly entertain you. But be thankful that I'm trying to conserve my voice for the theater. Hey, Jeff, would you run your fingers across the keyboard to give us a musical example of why it is that I can walk at a good pace for miles, but if I don't have the right music playing, I kind of struggle to even walk a half a mile.
Yeah.
Just do something across the keyboard.
Yeah, I'll play something. It's that pulse and something that keeps us going, for instance. Yeah, the time goes by fast. Yeah.
Okay.
As opposed to this. But that driving rhythm is what keeps you going. And it goes. It does. It goes by fast.
Elizabeth, do you hear anything in the pace, the rhythm of what Jeff just played that would motivate one to move their feet faster or to walk farther?
Yeah, absolutely. Like he was saying, that tempo kind of makes us start going and it makes us feel motivated. It kind of brings up our heart rate a little bit and it continues. And the more of a cycle that we have with these rhythms, the more we want to keep going. And like he mentioned, it's a good distraction. So if we have a tempo that's slower, or if one that we mentioned earlier isn't repetitive, or if it's chunky and breaks up, we're not going to feel motivated to just keep going. And we're going to want to stop. Or if it's changing our heart rate a lot, our motivation and our attention to what we're doing is going to change as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you break it up while we're walking, I get that movement going and I'm at a good little pace. And then suddenly, if the music starts into that chop, chop, choppy kind of beat that you were playing there, Jeff, shoot, I'm ready to take a break. Got it. By George, I've got it. You know, dancing is a great form of exercise to put to music. For those who aren't able to hit the dance floor, and as we used to say in the good old days, trip the light fantastic like they used to, do we still receive the benefits from minimal movement like clapping hands or tapping feet? I think we just did that, didn't we, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any kind of music is going to help you move any way that you can. And in rehab, we have this saying that motion is lotion for your joints. So it's kind of like the more you move, the looser things are. So even if you're just tapping your hands or wiggling your fingers, movement is good for your body.
Hey, Jess, can you make that transition between the movement of older people and the natural movement that a child moves into when they hear music?
Sure, absolutely. You know, music, it cues our movements, it structures our movements, and it can help coordinate our movements. And kids do that just freely with no bars hold, right? Somewhere along the line, we get this idea that we can't move however we feel like moving to the music. So we can go back to how kids get to experience it and try to tap into that a little bit. There's a lot of intergenerational bands being formed right now that are really fun.
Is there an evolutionary connection between movement that a young child can hear music and they'll start rocking to it? They've never heard it before and they'll start rocking to it? Or an older person, a senior person who sits in the wheelchair and doesn't move, and when they hear something, they just start moving? Is there some connection there?
Probably. I think it's just ingrained in our bodies. We are rhythmic people. we want to move and we want to respond to the sensory environment that we're provided with. And everybody might do that a little bit differently.
Yeah. Elizabeth, would you want to take a shot at that question?
Sure, absolutely. I think that there is an instinctual motivation that we don't even think about consciously from this connection of music and rhythm and tempo in our bodies. And we actually have been studying this a lot in people with Parkinson's disease. With people with Parkinson's, they have this tendency to really stiffen up and to freeze, and they can't walk smoothly in this with this repetition. But you can turn on some music, and all of a sudden their brain, these networks within the brain are hijacked, and they're actually communicating in a different route around this idea of just planned music. And it's not conscious of taking steps or consciously thinking about sitting down, but it's this different way for the brain to communicate through music that allows us to move. And even from talking, we know that talking is processed in a different part of the brain than music. So like Jess, I've worked with patients with stroke who lose the ability to talk. But actually, if I ask them or teach them how to sing or to talk in a sing-song voice, so to say what they want to say, but in a song, they're using a different part of their brain or using a different network, and then they're able to communicate through song. So that's a little bit different than music, but at the same time, it taps into this idea of this really evolutionary, harmonious way to use the brain in a way that just kind of helps it work through music and movement, just kind of holistically.
That term you just used, networks in the brain are hijacked. That I can see that right now. I'm walking along and a tune hits and suddenly the networks are hijacked and I'm jumping to it before I even know what happened. That's a good analogy. In the interest of time, we're going to move ahead just a little bit to make sure we cover everything we want to cover. And then if we have a little bit of time, we'll come back and entertain some questions from the audience and see how we go from there. So today's event was meant to teach you some new things about music and how it impacts our health. We hope you will continue learning about things that interest you and become a lifelong learner. As I mentioned earlier, you're going to hear about some opportunities to make your comeback to education or to simply explore how you're learning. So Jackie White is going to tell us more about these opportunities. Jackie, you're on mute.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Jackie White, and I am an AARP volunteer. I'm on the AARP Executive Council, and I am one of the lead ambassadors for Kentucky Comebackers. I don't know if you've heard of that program yet, but basically the Comebackers program provides information on 3 pathways to help adults go back to college or go back to high school and finish their education or enhance their education. One of the easiest ways to look at it is to think about it if you're I'm going to summarize the comments in the interest of time because it can get complicated, but right now we're all at home, all ages, trying to figure out how to replan our future with this pandemic and changes in every piece of our life. So some of us may have the time or the interest right now to go back and get reskilled. So if you're at that point of your life where you would be interested in going back to school or learning something new or getting a job where you can work from home, since everybody in the world seems to be working from home, there's basically 3 different roads or pathways to get you there. The first one is for people who want to get their GED. A lot of people don't have a high school diploma. The GED plan has been around for decades to help people get a high school diploma. So that's the first one. And the road that takes you down that to get to the GED is called Kentucky Skills U. and that will basically provide free adult education services to help you get a GED. The second road is for people who want to earn a college certificate or an associate's degree. Maybe you want to get something that's a certification like HVAC or dental technician or something like that, and just do a different career maybe. For people that want to do that, that road, that sign says Kentucky Work Ready. And there's also a Donovan Fellowship that applies for people that are 65 or older. So there's two different forks in that road that you can go down. The third road is for people who want to earn a bachelor's degree. Maybe you started and life interrupted and you didn't really get to finish college, but now you'd like to go back and teach or be a social worker or be a politician or a doctor or whatever it might be. Project Graduate, and also that Donovan Fellowship if you're 65 or older, both of those will get you there. So all these options, except for Donovan, are available to Kentucky adults of all ages. Donovan, again, is just 65 and older. Check with the individual program to determine your eligibility, but think about this. If you want more information, just go to aarp.org/comebackky, aarp.org/comebackky. It may be something you want to do with one of your grown children, or maybe you could start college or get a degree along with your grandkids, you know, whatever. But I wanted you to know it's there. Charles, I'm going to give it back to you.
Thank you, Jackie. That is very good information. And as you can see on your screen, we have some resources for you. You can jot them down. And of course, you can hit us up on Facebook or Twitter to get more information. And certainly you can always get to aarp.org/Louisville, Kentucky, Louisville, KY, to get in contact with us. So a lifelong learner is one who experiences life through a learning lens, and then they want to learn more. So by that very definition, all of us on this webinar today are lifelong learners. We hope you will join us at other AARP activities, which you find at aarp.org/Louisville. If you'd like what we've done here today, please let us know. I want to thank Alicia Quinn and Jackie White and Anisha Gray for us putting this together for you all. Thanks to our State Director, Ron Bridges, and State Volunteer President, Charlotte Whitaker. We also want to extend a special thanks to our guests, Jeff Raymond, Elizabeth Rhodus, and Jess Rushing. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank all of you for joining us today in this discussion of the power of music, mind, movement, and emotion. And as Jeff plays us out, I want to say to you in closing, embrace the power.